It might not be Thanksgiving, but the Panthers continue to feast on the Montreal Canadiens.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, March 1st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $150 if your first bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So the Florida Panthers, they defeat the Montreal Canadiens 3-2 in a shootout to sweep the homestand and now bring their home record to 28-2, matching records from home and road. Great to see for the Florida Panthers as they continue to chase for home ice in the Eastern Conference and possibly the entire Stanley Cup playoffs. But let me introduce today's guest here on the show for today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. As you notice, it's Friday, but there is no Nick Fairbanks here on the show. But in place of him, he is the host of Locked On Syracuse, Jackson Holzer. Jackson, welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, thank you, Armando. I've been a Panthers fan my entire life. I grew up in South Florida, and it's an honor to now be on the show.
Yeah, and probably before you said the part of you are from South Florida, I'm sure the listeners were thinking, why the host of Locked On Syracuse of all people? But hey, South Florida native.
I grew up in South Florida, and I played hockey. I played hockey. I played up until I went to college. But I started playing street hockey when I was maybe like 6 years old. And then I played travel hockey from basically 10 on up. So, I love hockey. And I go to Syracuse, but I love hockey.
Hey, and Syracuse has one of the best lacrosse programs in the country. So big lacrosse guy right here for me, right here. But this podcast, Wes Kendall meets Parkland right here on this podcast. But Florida Panthers, they defeat the Montreal Canadiens 3-2 in a shootout. And the biggest takeaway for me is how the Panthers have responded really after the second period. I mean, where the Juraj Slofkovsky gets the goal to tie at 2, but really even before that, I mean, some of the Panthers, they were having even before Sam Reinhart scored on the power play, the movement for the Panthers was, it was great on the power play, but just missing the net, especially on that first one, and Barkov missing quite a few times there. But the Panthers find a way to convert on the power play. I mean, you're thinking just one split second of Matthew Tkachuk finding that lane in the middle, in that passing lane in the middle to Sam Reinhart, where he scores it past the blocker of former Panther Sam Montembault as well. I mean, also this was a game where the Panthers learned to respect the likes of a Juraj Slofkovsky as well, because in that goal where Nick Suzuki scored on the breakaway, you saw Gus Forsling drawing towards Slofkovsky, and then Arbor Jackeye gets that stretch where Forsling is up in the neutral zone. Ekblad is the only one back, and it kind of hurts the Panthers there as well. But the way the Panthers were responded after those, they respected their game, but they also stuck to their own game as well.
Yeah, they stuck to their own game. There was a lot of adversity in this one. I mean, I thought that first period, Barkov gets that first goal, and I'm thinking, here we go again. Barkov and Montreal. What else is new? He owns the Montreal Canadiens, and the Panthers are going to win this game 5-1, and we're all going to be happy, and this is going to be easy. And then Montreal ties the game. All right, fine. That's your one goal. There you go. Congratulations. We'll keep the streak alive, which, by the way, it ended finally. They allowed 3 goals in the game. Shame on them. And then they completely dominate the second period. And this is what frustrates me so much sometimes is that even though you're dominating, if you're not capitalizing on your chances, it doesn't matter. The scoreboard is what matters. Yes, they make it 2-1, and then all of a sudden Montreal gets one chance. And it was on a tee. Armando, it was like sitting there on a tee. We saw it all coming. He won the faceoff perfectly. The shot comes in. I think it hit a body in front, and then boom, goal.
Yeah, and
it sucks. It's but we know this Panthers team, and we've seen them fight through adversity a lot tougher than giving up a goal with 0.7 to go in a second period. We've seen a lot of adversity before. They give up the goal in the third, fine, and then Reinhart. What else is new? I mean, wicked shot. I couldn't even see it go in originally. Honestly, I didn't like raise my hands up until I saw his celebration because he thought it went in. They found a way to win. That's the best way to put it. They did not play a perfect game at all. There were some mistakes in there that were very uncharacteristic for them. I don't think Stolarz had his best game. He did come up big when we needed him, especially in the overtime. He didn't have his best game. The Panthers didn't play their best game, but that's what the great teams do. They find a way to get the job done.
Yeah, and both those goals that the first two goals that the Panthers scored, just like how Forsling was caught in the pinch on the Suzuki goal, Caden Gooley was caught on the pinch right before the Panthers got the puck out of the zone, and then Barkov beats Montembault glove side there, which that also in that same goal, Verhaeghe got a career high in assists there as well. So for the Panthers there. So just another milestone for a Panther. And then that shorthanded goal.
Speaking of Verhaeghe, I'm pretty sure that he has set some sort of career high ever since the Panthers have signed him. I think if you go every single year, he has set a career high. Like the first year they sign him, everything across the board. He breaks out completely. Year two comes because it's a full season. He shatters all the career highs. Then last year he scores 40 goals, and this year he has his most assists ever. It's every year. Every year the guy's setting a new career high.
Yeah, it's just great the fact that they got him basically for free, and you said 40 goals last season, and then Sam Reinhart gets 40 for the first time, breaking his 7-game goal drought as well. And just I want to go back to what you said about the shorthanded goal by Sam Reinhart. It's just also how great Aleksander Barkov is on the give and goes as well. And just the fact that you have them draw towards Sam Reinhart, and then that sharp angle shot, you see Montembault lift his shoulder a little bit, is like, and he's questioning, did that go in? Did it not? But also there was also something I wrote in my notes after the second period about the Panthers kind of having the Canadiens where they want them as well. And also during the intermission, I thought this was something very important that Ed Jovanowski spoke about when Craig Minervini asked him, do you think the Panthers get fazed by something like that? And it's like, no, it's, excuse me. Also the ability, for the Panthers to just have such a short memory as well. I mean, it's not like 2 years ago where it's like coming back from 5 goals. It's a still very manageable game for the Panthers. And their goal differential in the second period, even though it's still in the positive, it's the worst out of the 3 periods. But still, that was the second period for this one was where the Panthers really kind of ate their lunch on the evening.
Yeah, and it honestly, that's what made it so frustrating, was that was their best period, and the score was 2-2 at the end of the second period, because at the end of the day, you can play a great 16 minutes of the period, but if you don't play a good 4 minutes, this is the National Hockey League, and I don't care if the Montreal Canadiens don't have a lot of points in the standings. If you take your foot off the gas a little bit, and I'm not saying that it was any sort of effort thing, it's the National Hockey League. Teams are going to get their chances. I don't want to trash on Stolarz at all, but I think in this type of game, until the overtime, because I thought he was big in the overtime, but I was kind of like, man, can you give us one save? I know you've done it basically all year, but pick a goal, and can we just take that one off the board? Because a lot of times in hockey, it comes down to special teams and goaltending.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost every single game, if you just track it. How did the team do on special teams? And how was their goaltender on that given night? And I thought when it was 3-2 Canadiens, that the Panthers were playing a better game than Montreal, but Montreal's special teams was better, and they had the better goalie in the ice at that moment. They found a way to win, though, and that's ultimately what really matters.
Yep, ultimately what matters as the Florida Panthers defeat the Montreal Canadiens by a final score of 4-3. And also Anthony Stolarz had just an incredible stop in the shootout with the glove too. It went on Nick Suzuki and all. Just couldn't lift that high enough to get that one past him as he kept the Panthers really in this one as well. But also the different line combos throughout the game. Paul Maurice still kept the pairs, but still switched up the wingers from time to time there. Obviously you're trying to read through the score as well and trying to play to that. So good on Paul Maurice knowing when to plug that in when necessary as well for whenever you need that extra scoring spark on the night. But hey, Panthers find a way to still come out with this one and still keep their lead in the Atlantic Division. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss more about our 3 stars and when we thought this game was won or lost. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. And get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your first bet wins. Bet on all your favorite players and teams with quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official partner of the NBA. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV with the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Back on this Friday, March 1st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday. Sitting in for Nick Fairbanks here on today's show, he is the host of Locked On Syracuse, Jackson Holzer, and he is a South Florida native, Florida Panthers fan, and once again the host of Locked On Syracuse. So go check out Locked On Syracuse anywhere you listen to your podcast. And 3 stars of the game for this one for me. I'm gonna start this one off for this one. Number 1 is Sam Reinhart, a power play goal, a shorthanded goal, and also the 40 goal mark for the Florida Panthers. The last player to lead the NHL in power play goals and shorthanded goals, Mario Lemieux. Great company to be in. And then Barkov, another 3-point night, feasting on the Canadiens, like you said earlier, Jackson. He just loves playing that team. And then third will be Nick Suzuki, who gets 3 points on the night. And even even though he got stopped by Anthony Stolarz, still just Maurice just talked about a lot of Barkov in him and just the defensive play, back checking, played in all situations. He gets the 3rd star of the night for this one. But also special shout out to Stolarz, Ekblad, Forsling. There was so many centering feeds that Forsling was just in great position, and there was one where he even reached out with the stick as he was beat too. And Ekblad had an incredible stop on a centering feed from Newhook to Suzuki too that caused actually an offside too in that same shift as well. Your 3 stars, my friend.
Well, those were my 3 stars. I will go a little bit off the board though, since you took the exact 3 in the exact order I would have given. That's okay though. But about Ekblad, that play that he made to stop that centering pass literally saved the goal. And we're not talking about the Sam Reinhart shorthanded goal. If Ekblad does not make that play to stop, it was a literal tap in, but he stopped it, causes an offsides. The Panthers kill the penalty. Of course, they go on to win the game. Hallelujah, right? All right. First 2 stars, we're in agreement. Sam Reinhart, Aleksander Barkov. There's not much else to say about those two. This is just their season. This is Sam Reinhart's world. We're just living in it, and we're going to have to pay him a lot of money, and we're going to have to suck it up and deal with it because he's going to score 40 goals a lot, hopefully, right? Barkov had a great game too. And since you took Nick Suzuki, because I was going to give it to him, I'm going to give it to Chucky.
Okay.
Chucky had 1 assist, which is, 1 assist, right? But he is so good in front of the net. He is so good along the wall. That's the best part about Chucky.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best part. Yeah, he gets into fights. He's physical and everything. But along the wall, you can't move the guy. You cannot move him. He was winning so many battles every single time he was on the ice. And the puck would not leave the offensive zone. I kept on saying to myself, can we just get Chucky out here? How does he only have 1 point right now? And yeah, he set up the Reinhart goal and the patented, you give him a half a second, you give him that little sliver of space. Reinhart scored a lot of goals, and you can thank Chucky for that. I think that when Reinhart gets paid, you have a little agent fee. You got to give like 5% to the agent, right? I think another 5% should go to Matthew Tkachuk for just setting him up all the freaking time. All the time, the guy sets him up. So I'm going to give him the 3rd star because I just want to be a little bit different than you. And I believe he definitely deserves a shout out because he played a great game, even though the stat sheet says he only had 1 assist.
All that tax money that he wouldn't be paying somewhere else, you can make that up by giving some of it a little bit to Matthew Tkachuk as well. But also,
I think what Toronto fans would want is that Sam Reinhart gets paid $12 million and he donates 5% of the $12 million to Matthew Tkachuk. I think that's what the Toronto fans would want. But, they have to complain about all state taxes and everything like that. And we got to change all the rules of cap because of state taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. State taxes, state income tax, never heard of her. But also Matthew Tkachuk, there different impact on this game too, where let's also not forget the end of the first period, tension started to flare as he crashed the net, got the whistle, and then that shoving with former Panther Mike Matheson, creating the 4-on-4, and then 4 seconds later, the Panthers go 4-on-3, carried over to the second period, even though they didn't score. Tkachuk's impact, but also Tkachuk's penalty on the cross check behind the net was how it got the Panthers on the power play in the first place, because as it was developing, there was a little bit of a lane between David Savard, Sam Montembault, as he was going to retrieve the puck behind the boards, kind of squeezed in, contacted Sam Montembault. So that was a cross check saying, hey, don't hit my goalie. So that, and the frustration carried in, and that is where, and this is the perfect segue too, when I thought, well, actually, no, different moment. Sorry. But this is a perfect, just how Matthew Tkachuk just gets under the skin of the opponent, consistently creating man advantages. I mean, Nick Cousins created it the other night, even though he got up fairly quickly. But going to the part when I thought this game was won or lost, it has to be the shorthanded goal, right? Has to be.
Yeah,
at least that one's mine. It's like, okay, it's tied. OEL goes to the box on that tripping in the neutral zone, and even Randy Moeller spoke about it. It's the Panthers' constant pursuit of fighting for pucks, even if they're going to the penalty box. So that's a penalty you don't necessarily mind as far as the kind of penalty taken. It's just the timing is just like it can take air out of a balloon, but still the Panthers found a way there.
I agree with you also that I thought that was the game that was the moment where I thought the Panthers won the game. Because I will also give a shout out in a second. When OEL took the penalty, Randy Moeller said it also. He also said, like, even when they get out of this, there's only going to be like 5 minutes left in the game, right? That's not I know you say like you can live with that type of penalty because you're being aggressive and stuff is going to happen, but you'd like to not take a penalty when you're trailing by a goal and there's 7 minutes left in the third period. That's kind of not ideal. Yeah. I mean, unless it's an absolutely necessary, like preventing a breakaway. But shout out to my friend's dad. I got to shout him out here because he immediately says, Shorty is coming. They're going to score a shorthanded goal. He goes, they're going to score a shorthanded goal. I'm like, I don't know where you're getting that from. But I mean, like, how often do we say that and we're just like, yeah, there's no shorthanded goal here? That was, I think, the moment where I was like, I kind of breathed a sigh of relief. I was like, okay, like they got this. They're going to beat the Montreal Canadiens. And I know, like, a Panther fan might be discouraged, like, we had to go to a shootout to beat the Canadiens. But I said earlier, this is the National Hockey League. And I thought Goldie made a great point during the broadcast. Every single game is going to have a different challenge. You know, one game you're going to play against the New York Rangers coming up. And us and the Rangers right now, we're fighting for that top spot in the Eastern Conference, home ice advantage throughout the playoffs, right? Then you got your other teams who are fighting just to get into the playoffs.
Jersey.
That's New Jersey coming up, right?
Mm-hmm. And
then you got the Montreal Canadiens, and you might be saying, you know, what do the Montreal Canadiens have to play for? And I'm like, well,
pride.
Goldie said it. Yes, it's pride, but it's also jobs. It's jobs. These players you think they want to lose? Losing doesn't help their budget. Losing doesn't help the paycheck. You know what helps the paycheck? Winning. Winning does, because when you're winning, that means you're playing well. And so when you're playing a bad team and it's the National Hockey League, the challenge is these guys, yeah, they might be losing, but they have a lot of motivation here because they might not make the NHL next season. They might not be there. There's a reason why they're bad. They're not great players. And they want to stay in the NHL. Every game has a different challenge. So I would not be discouraged that for this game, the Panthers didn't play perfect and they had to go to a shootout to beat the Montreal Canadiens. It's not the end of the world.
Absolutely not. Not the end of the world. A few final stats before we transition over to segment number 3. Panthers outshoot the Canadiens 35-31. Go 1 for 5 on the power play, 3 for 4 on the penalty kill. And Sam Bennett, 7 shots on goal. That Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, Nick Cousins line, Corsi 4 percentage was 89%. Shots on goal for and against that 5-on-5 was 9-1. Just continue to just be in the face, closing the gaps and all, and just continuing what they're doing on that forecheck. Just gotta love what the Panthers do night in and night out. But we're gonna transition over to segment number 3. We're gonna discuss more about the upcoming weekend and, like Jackson said, the upcoming road trip that the Panthers will have a lot of challenges coming up. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And you shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices viewed from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. Buy tickets in seconds in just 2 taps. Game Time has the deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. Is the place to find last-minute seats. With exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, hockey, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seat for big-time savings. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment number 3 here on this Friday, March 1st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday, where the Florida Panthers get a 4-3 shootout win over the Montreal Canadiens. Here with the host of Locked On Syracuse, Jackson Holzer, sitting in for Nick Fairbanks, South Florida native, more importantly. And once again, make sure to go listen to Locked On Syracuse anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Also wanted to give a public congratulations to Anthony Stolarz as well for getting a win in his 100th game played tonight. Wanted to make sure that I gave him a shout out for this one as well. But some news as far as announcements for the Florida Panthers. The ribbon cutting ceremony for War Memorial will officially be on March 20th at 3 p.m. At 6 p.m. there will be an invite-only game, and currently in phase 3 of remodeling the place, where the restaurant called the Federal is expected to open in April, and phase 4, where the auditorium is not yet finished, obviously, but is going to be somewhere open down the line, and backed by Live Nation. So Florida Panthers going into this big 3-game road trip. And honestly, Jackson, the way that I spoke last week about the way that Paul Maurice views the goaltending, with Sergei Bobrovsky feeling like he's still getting his rhythm, but still getting not feeling the days off. And you look at from Tuesday, the game against Buffalo, and then treating Saturday's game as like a half day off, because you only have a 1-day gap in between Saturday and then Monday's game against New York Rangers. But it's not going to be an easy task on Saturday. By the way, nationally televised game, ABC, 3 p.m. from Little Caesars Arena. Playoff hockey is going to be back in Detroit, and the first time in that specific arena too. And Patrick Kane stole Chris Chelios' spotlight back on Sunday too. So another storyline as far as the Detroit Red Wings. But Detroit broke the 10-game losing streak back on January 17th. That was the Erod embellishment game, unfortunately. But how are you viewing this matchup for the Panthers as they hit the road for the next 3 against Detroit, New York, and then Jersey?
I think for this road trip, what you're looking at is 2-1. Can you go 2-1? I don't care which game they lose. I don't care which 2 they win. I think you're looking at trying to go 2-1 here. This isn't going to be an easy one. It looks tough, and I'm telling you, it is certainly going to be challenging. Detroit it has been blistering hot as of late. That team, as you mentioned, is going to be, in all likelihood, in the postseason. They're for real. And I've spoken to a lot of fans, a lot of my friends, and we're all, wondering, who do we want to play in the first round of the playoffs? And a lot of people are like, well, we want to play Detroit. And I'm like, is there really, are you sure you want to play the Red Wings? They're pretty good. I don't know. You got to be paying attention to them. They're pretty good. They're blistering hot right now. Patrick Kane, he's drank from the fountain of youth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all knew he could score, but if you look at his underlying defensive metrics, apparently he's playing like the best defense of his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
Who knew? And a lot of people were concerned about if the Panthers signed him, well, he can't play defense. Newsflash, Hall of Fame player can play defense, right? Newsflash, he can play defense. I still wish the Panthers got him. And then you got the Rangers, and they're fighting for that President's Trophy too. They're not going to be easy. And then the Devils are just trying to, get back onto the map. They're trying to they're trying to string together like 3 straight wins so they can wake up mid-March and be, 2 or 3 points out of the playoffs. So every game is going to be challenging here. And as far as the split, I think you're looking at probably Bob is going to go against Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Bob will go against the Rangers, and then Stolarz probably takes the Devils.
Yeah. Like I said, front, the better team on their 3 remaining back-to-backs, the better team record-wise is on the front end each and every time. So even though you trust Stolarz to go out there, best road GAA in the National Hockey League too. So there's a lot of trust there, and it's also great to have that tandem there for the Panthers as well there. And it's just like it goes back to Paul Maurice and saying the whole emotional advantage that other teams have when it comes to what the Panthers are facing versus what they did last year. Complete 180 on that as well. And just also, I do also want to read one quote from Jameson Olive about Lundell and his game-winning shootout. We didn't even mention that on the show. Also because it's shootouts, and shootouts are not hockey, so I don't really.
They're not hockey. It's fun for. It's always fun to watch, but I don't really care for it. I don't like, it doesn't matter. You want a shootout?
Yeah.
Cool. I'll just take the 2 points. That's all I care about.
But still, the slick moves of backhand to forehand and fooling Sam Montembault. Just Lundell said, quote, "I had a couple of moves on my mind. I saw a little bit of how the goalie played during the game, and I thought it was a move that I wanted to try," close quote. So just perfectly executed there for Anton Lundell. But going back to Detroit, we also got to talk about possibly the greatest value contract in all of the NHL, and it's former Panther Alex Lyon. And
I thought you were going to say Ben Sherratt for a second.
No way. It would be maybe in an alternate universe of Locked On Panthers, but not this one. But Alex Lyon taking the reins as the starter. I mean, 18 wins, 274 GAA, 912, and the guy that saved the Panthers season. I mean, we all knew he was never going to sign a two-way here, but getting that one way, that guaranteed money and that security. Ville Husso has been hurt and up and down too, but just also riding the success of there. I still have questions about the Detroit Red Wings blue line specifically. We love Shane Gostisbehere, South Florida native. We love the representation, but still we all know what his strength really is, and that's on the offensive side of the puck. But that's where really the Panthers are hoping. We hope that the Panthers, that's what they can do, is expose that. And also, I have to mention this all the time when the Panthers play the Red Wings. Since Bobrovsky has signed with the Panthers, they played the Red Wings twice on November 2nd and 2 shutouts. So
on November 2nd? Oh, this is something that we forgot to mention here. This was the Panthers' first time they've ever won on February 29th.
Wow.
And you might be saying, like, well, they don't play often on February 29th. You're right. But going into the game, I saw it. They were like 0-4 on February 29th. And so I sent it to my friends. I was like, well, I guess we're going to lose. And I thought we might lose when we're down 3-2. We broke the streak.
Yeah, if you were born in 1992, you're technically 8 years old today.
I think the Syracuse basketball coach, his birthday is today. So he's, I think, like 13. Good for him.
Well, is it his first year or is his second year?
It's his first year.
First year. Boeheim retired last year. So
yep.
I guess that's a great way to end it if we're transitioning to Syracuse basketball. We could always talk about that off the air as well. Just whenever they do play Florida State, I hope that they just go easy on them, at least for my sake, because we all know football is the king there at Florida State University. But it's still weird that there was a time where it was called Carrier Dome, but their AC was like one of the worst.
Yeah, they didn't have AC.
Yeah,
they actually just straight up didn't have it. They installed the AC before I got there. Thank goodness. I don't know how people did it.
Makes no sense to me. But Jackson, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, breaking down this 4-3 shootout victory for the Florida Panthers over the Montreal Canadiens. And even with one game remaining, they have won the season series over Montreal, 3-0-0 on the season. Tell everybody where they can find you and your work online.
Yes. Locked On Syracuse podcast. You can look it up on YouTube. We're on every single listening platform for your podcast. You can also follow us at LO_Syracuse. Very active on there as well. And this team, I mean, I'm just saying, maybe, just maybe, they might make the tournament. That is all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what we will see as college hoops March Madness is coming. The Florida Swing in golf is officially here this weekend. Now it's not called the Conziant Classic, not the Honda Classic anymore. But yeah, you'll see me at Bay Hill next weekend. So very excited for lots of sports this month, and the Masters is next month too. So very excited. But Jackson, thank you so much, my friend, and I will see you next time.
Thank you, Armando. Anytime.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows in the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jackson Holzer, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.